That's what a schwa is. But in Hebrew, they use the same mark for a vocal sound as well as to mark dead space at the end of a word or an end of a syllable. We'll talk about that in the next lesson. And theoretically, there could be a silent schwa just marking the end of a word at the end of every word. But for some reason, they just put it in final coughs. Okay? Again, strange but true. Don't throw things at me. I didn't make these decisions. Which means that the cough can almost be learned with the schwa put in it because it's the only time you're going to see it, and every time you get a final cough, you're going to see it. So you can kind of learn it with the letter. That's what's going on here, all right? And that's why it gets included. All right? So that's cough. Now we got a final letter. That's another list we should be making in the sidebar somewhere. All right, let's go on. This is my favorite letter now. Next letter is lamed. Lamed. It's the L, okay? It's the L. Now, the lamed is the first time we go above the writing line, okay? If this was the first time we went below, theoretically, I'll write that in as the top of your writing line. This is kind of like getting that special paper you use in kindergarten and first grade. But you see it's got a little top above it. The first stroke comes down. Now you go along the top of the line, and now this gets tricky because you got to kind of come gradually back down and hit the bottom line where you hit the top line and come out at the right spot. You see what I'm saying? This one's always a little tricky because to get that just sort of in the right proportion is, oh, that was pretty good. Once in a while I get a good one too. What tends to happen is you end too soon or something and kind of hit bottom that way. Or students will hit too late and do something like that, you see. Or they'll make what I call a lightning lamed and not have enough of a sort of a bow or belly in there. See what I'm saying? And to make a nice curved lamed takes a little bit of practice. Now the Masoretes, remember I told you about these scribes, the Masoretes? They love to play with lameds, okay? And you see, they would start with these tall tops like this, see? And they decorate these things, and they'd make big loops in them like that. And then they'd write all sorts of letters in here. So you could put all the 10 Commandments inside the top of a lamed, see? This is what when you find old illuminated manuscripts, this is the kind of stuff the scribes did with their free time. And if you did 2 loops, of course, now you got a rabbit lamed, and you can write even more stuff. Now you can write the other table of the law on this side. Okay, we're getting silly. Oh, lamed. Okay. Mame. Mame's an M. Okay. Now the mame is for mailbox. Does this look like a mailbox with a little flag up, or a loaf of bread, or something like that? I make my mames starting here, with a little curve at the top, come down. Now go over and around like a piece of bread, and then come back, but don't touch. Okay, you got to leave a little gap there. Okay. I know many fine scribes who make a mame just backwards. I don't know if they're left-handed or not. I can't do this. It never comes out right for me, but whatever works is fine. Okay? Develop your own scribal tradition. But there's a mame. Okay? Now, you'll notice that once again we have a final form to this letter. And consistent with the idea that final forms tend to square or block things off, the final mame is exactly that. It's a square. A block. And just make a square and you're done. All right? That's your final meme. Any questions? Tail. No tail. Is that what you asked me?
Yeah, I'm not made. Final made.
No, that's badly made. That's not a tail there. It's just a square. In the printed one, just because it seems to go around this way, yeah, I see what you mean. There's almost a little tail there. But generally, when you're writing them, it's just a box, a square. Okay? Nun. We're doing LMN at least in a row, all right, which is somewhat like English. Now the nun is a teeny narrow letter. All right, this is one of the narrowest ones. So here, if we had our sort of our writing box again, the nun would really fill up only the right-hand side of it. Don't make your nun too wide. None too wide. Really, some people make them just as a down and out. But again, in printing and in most writing, there's a little top to it, but it's really the bottom one that's more substantial. The top should probably be a little less of a line than the bottom. That's kind of a minor point. Okay? There's our nun. Can you tell what this is? Probably can't tell that that's written with a blue pen. That's a blue nun. Sorry about that. There's also a final form to this letter, which is little more than a vertical line all the way down below the line, just a straight up and down. And again, we're just sort of finishing it off, blocking it off. Again, if you put a top on the regular nun, you should put a little bit of a top on the final nun, and away you go. But once again, it extends below the line. If you don't extend it below the line, what do you have? Remember, this is the wow, and this is a final nun. All right, this is sometimes students get real sloppy and they do something like this, see? And now you're not sure whether the word is ending with a wow, and there are words that end in wow, or ending with a final nun. Okay? All right, let's recite. We haven't recited for a while. Let's see if we can get all the way to nun now. Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wow, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun. Okay? Now we get four that I could never keep straight. All right? And why they're in this order, I don't know. Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadeh. All right? Right now you should be going, what, elemental, P, Q, stuff like that. And we don't get the Q and R until we get down here. So we have this sort of strange interlude with an S, something called an ayin, a P, and a TS sound. Ayin, Samek ayin, Pei, Tzadeh. Right? Just say those four in a row because these always are difficult at this point in the alphabet. Samek, ayin, Pei, Tzadeh. Samek is really the most simple S sound. It's our basic S, all right? And it's sort of like a backwards sigma, actually, right? You go around and come out here, okay? Samek. Now be careful that first stroke, and again, I make them this way. I guess you could make them this way if you wanted to. But I go over, and be sure that